Okay, so you probably heard of this one, right? The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck. It's a pretty popular book. Catchy title for sure. And, well, today we're going to really take a deep dive into it.
Yeah, it's definitely a book that gets people talking.
That's for sure.
And, it's not really about being totally indifferent to everything like the title might make you think. It's more about
Yeah.
being cheesy,
Right.
right? Like where do you want to direct your energy? What really deserves your attention?
Exactly, exactly. It's about giving fewer facts but making them really count. And to get us started, Manson, the author, he brings up someone who really embodies this idea, but in kind of a surprising way, and that's Charles Bukowski.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so he was a writer,
Right.
but not exactly known for, being a saint or anything.
Right. Right. Let's just say he was a bit rough around the edges, right?
Definitely, definitely. Not afraid to be a little rough, a little raw.
Yeah, and in a way those rough edges, those imperfections, they became like a big part of his writing. And I think that contributed to his success.
Yeah, absolutely. He owned those flaws, those parts of himself that didn't really fit in with what everyone else expected. So how does this connect to not giving a feck? What's the link?
Well, I think for Bukowski, it was about authenticity,
Yeah.
right? Like he stopped trying to be someone he wasn't. He stopped giving a fuck about meeting other people's expectations.
Yeah, yeah.
And he just focused on what felt true to him.
Right.
And that was really liberating for him.
Yeah, it's a powerful concept. And it actually leads us right into one of Manson's big ideas, the feedback loop from hell.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Have you ever gotten stuck in that cycle where you feel bad about something?
Oh, all the time.
Right. And then you just beat yourself up for feeling bad in the first place.
Oh, it's like a double whammy of negativity, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It's like you're failing at failing. And I feel like it's even worse now with social media.
Oh, absolutely. You're constantly bombarded with everyone's highlight reel,
Right?
right?
Vacations, relationships, achievements. It's like everyone's killing it.
And it's so easy to get caught up in that comparison game.
Yeah.
And then you feel even
You got it.
worse
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
feeling bad. It's like this vicious cycle.
Totally. And that's where I think this idea of not giving a feck comes in. But it's not about pretending your problems don't exist or
Yeah.
ignoring your feelings altogether, right?
Yeah. Right. It's not about suppressing your emotions or being emotionless.
Right.
It's more about like short-circuiting that loop, acknowledging those negative feelings,
Yeah.
but not letting them completely take over.
Yeah, I like that. So it's about choosing your battles, right? Deciding which stresses are worth our energy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like ask yourself, is this really worth my time and energy?
So it's about being selective, about choosing which stresses actually deserve our attention. And that kind of ties into, I think, with Manson's next big idea, which is that you're not special.
Right. That one's a bit of a punch in the gut, isn't it?
Yeah, at first it's like, whoa, okay, tell me how you really feel. But he's not saying it to be mean. So, what's he getting at there?
Well, I think we're often brought up with this idea that we're all special snowflakes destined for greatness.
Mm-hmm.
And while that can be motivating, it can also set us up for disappointment because,
Because the reality is, most of us, we're not going to be Olympic athletes or Nobel Prize winners.
yeah, most of us are somewhere in the middle.
Right, right. We're not all going to be extraordinary in that way.
And the thing is, that's okay. Like embracing our averageness can be really freeing.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it takes the pressure off. You don't have to be this extraordinary, perfect person. You can just be you, find your own path.
Right. So it's not about just resigning yourself to mediocrity.
No, not at all.
It's more about shifting your perspective, right? Instead of chasing someone else's definition of success,
Exactly. Define success for yourself.
yeah, what matters to you? What are your values? That kind of thing.
And that actually ties in perfectly with another key concept from the book, choosing your struggles. It's like, everyone wants to stand on top of Mount Everest, right? But would they be so gung-ho if they had to actually, like, climb it, experience all the struggle and everything that goes into it?
Oh, that's such a good point. We all want the success, the achievement, but are we really ready to embrace the tough parts that come with it, the struggles, the setbacks?
Yeah. And that's what Manson wants us to really think about, like choosing our struggles. He's saying that real fulfillment, it doesn't just come from, like, checking things off your to-do list.
Right,
It
right.
comes
Yeah.
from the journey itself.
Okay, so it's not about avoiding hard work or discomfort, but more about being intentional.
Hmm.
What kind of hard work are we actually signing up for? What are we willing to go through?
Exactly. It's about being honest with yourself. Ask yourself, like, what kind of pain am I willing to deal with to reach my goals? What are my values? What's really driving me?
Yeah, because I think if we're not careful, it's easy to get caught up in like someone else's version of success, right? Instead of figuring out what it really means for us.
Yes, totally. And that's where I think being able to say no comes in. It's about creating boundaries,
Yeah.
like figuring out what's really important to you and then being okay with saying no to all the other stuff, the distractions, the obligations, the things that don't really align with your values.
That's so funny you mentioned that because I used to be terrible at saying no. Like for a long time, I was all about chasing new experiences, new adventures. Everything had to be new and exciting.
Oh, I feel that. So what happened? Where'd that lead you?
Well, I mean, on the surface, it was amazing. I have like a million stories.
Right.
But after a while, it started to feel kind of empty. Like I was so busy saying yes to everything that
Yeah.
I wasn't really giving my full attention to anything.
Spreading yourself too thin.
Exactly. It was like I was always on the go, but not really going anywhere. You know what I mean? It was only when I started like actually saying no to things
Right.
that I could finally focus on what really mattered.
Yeah, you got to create space for the good stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to say no to the good so you can say yes to the great, right?
100%. And this kind of leads us to something Manson talks about that might seem a little uh, intense at first.
Yeah.
He calls it using death as a compass.
Yeah, I got to admit, when I first read that, I was kind of thrown. It seemed a little dark.
Yeah, I get that.
But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense.
It's not about being morbid or anything.
Right.
It's about using the fact that our time here is limited to help us figure out what's really important.
It's like a reminder that life's precious,
Yeah.
right? We shouldn't waste it on things that don't really matter. It is like this wake-up call. It's like we get so caught up in our daily grind, the to-do lists, the little things that bug us,
Right, right.
that we forget to like take a step back and ask ourselves, like, what am I even doing with my life? This one precious life that we have.
It's so easy to lose sight of the big picture.
Totally. And that's what I think makes this death as a compass thing so powerful.
Yeah.
It's not about being all doom and gloom. It's about like using that awareness to help us live more intentionally.
Right. Like if you really knew how much time you had left, would you still be making the same choices? Would you be spending your energy on the same things?
Exactly. Exactly. It's like this lens to look at your priorities through. And I think it's something we can all benefit from no matter how old we are or what's going on in our lives.
Absolutely. The good reminder for everyone.
And this actually reminds me of something that happened to me a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I was hiking with some friends. We were in the Himalayas.
Right.
And I'm talking like breathtaking scenery, right?
I bet.
But we were on this really narrow ridge, like thousands of feet up.
Oh, wow.
Wind was whipping around us. And I suddenly had this thought, like, this is it? This is how I go falling off a mountain in the middle of nowhere.
That must have been terrifying.
You'd think so, right? But honestly, I felt weirdly calm. It was strange. Like all the stuff that normally stresses me out of work, relationships, that weird stain I can't get out of my favorite shirt.
Right, right.
It all just seemed so small, so insignificant.
It's funny how a brush with, like, our own mortality can do that.
Right. Like suddenly it's all about what really matters.
Exactly.
And that experience, scary as it was, it kind of stuck with me. It's this reminder to not sweat the small stuff, to focus on what actually matters. And I think that's really what Manson's getting at with this whole not giving a fleck thing.
Yeah, it's about defining what matters to you, what you're willing to, like, really put in the effort for, what
Yeah.
you're willing to invest your time and energy in.
Because at the end of the day, those are the things that are going to make your life meaningful, the things you can look back on and be like, yeah, I'm proud of that. I lived a good life. I might have given a feck about a lot of things, but I chose my battles.
That's a good way to put it. You don't have to be indifferent to everything. Just choose what matters.
Exactly. And that's, I think, a pretty powerful message, right?
It is. It's empowering,
Yeah,
You have the power to choose what you give a fuck about.
it really is. So to everyone listening, as you're going about your day-to-day, maybe ask yourself, what struggles are you choosing? What really deserves your energy? It's something to think about. And that's a wrap on this deep dive into the subtle art of not giving a feck it. Hope you guys enjoyed it and maybe even took away a few things to ponder on what truly matters in your own lives.